Hi, this is Exorcist, a show where I take a look at some Gunpla and see how authentic they are. This time, we are looking at Sugai's Gelgoog from Gundam GQuuuuuuX. It is a high-grade 1-to-144. As usual, gMS-01 Gelgoog is a mass production type of Gundam produced by the Principality of Zeong. In the GQuuuuuuX alternative timeline, Zeong won the One-Year War because Shah Aznabu managed to capture the RX-78-2. That allowed Zeong to later mass-produce Gundam much more effectively. But unlike the original timeline, because the war have been going well for Zeong, they are not desperate enough to press Gelgoog into service. So it ended up being a limited deployed test type, much like the original Gelgoog. By the time the GQuuuuuuX story properly starts, in UZ-85, because the war has ended, the plan to fully adopt Gelgoog as the standard mobile suit is still in a limbo. And with a lot of Federation engineers now being absorbed by the Principality of Zeong, they do want to support their line of work, their research. So they team up with Sugai, a former Federation ace pilot, to join the clan battle to prove how great Gelgoog is, to try to push forward for a full formal adaptation. I'll be rating this kit with Saga, style, action, gimmick, and absence. Style is how much does the Gunpla resemble its counterparts in anime, manga, games, or other media. And much like Witch from Mercury, the GQuuuuuuX series have computer models done with them for the animation and for pretty much other references. And aside from the visor that I painted up, for some personal reasons that we might not talk about in this video but in another video, it is very accurate. There is a few places that is designated as yellow, like the fuel tanks in the calf and thigh, but otherwise, yeah, the colors are fully realized. There's a bit here on the backpack that is supposed to be black or dark gray, but I think red works just as fine. The Gelgoog GQ is designed by Inata Wataru, the same Armor Core and Pele's mobile suit designer, and he's pretty much making the original Mobile Suit Gundam mobile suit as realistic as possible, within the confines of a toy. But a lot of the design language on pretty much the whole GQuuuuuuX series are modern technology, like our 2020s, maybe slightly earlier, but things that can be done in the next 10 or 20 years to realize a 18 meters tall robot. That's how Inata Wataru designed the mobile suit for GQuuuuuuX. Their reinterpretation of Okawara's design, which are much more advanced than people often mistaken, to be honest. But again, that would be a separate video. Just know that Inata Wataru is designing the mobile suit as if we are building it today or designing it to be built in the next 10 or 20 years. So yeah, by that metric, it is a very good interpretation of not actually Gelgoog from the original Mobile Suit Gundam design, but GM, since this is a mass production type of Gundam. Taking a look at the head, the visor also have three eyes on it. A lot of people compare it to the Asamu's design in Zeta Gundam, the new translation, but it is more like Okawa's tendency of creating multi-scope for multi-spectrum optical arrays. I would talk about how big of a Okawa fan Inata Wataru definitely is, or at least he has some very deep understanding of Okawa's design. But yeah, the antenna at the back, and then this now that people think is more of a influence of Xeon. I think it's more of a influence from the GM command type or code district type to be exact, because code district type also have the traditional GM mountain shaped visor. I think these are coolant tubes. I don't think Gelgoog GQ have anything like the pulse transmission. I think it is fully field motor operate, as we will see in the joints. So this is probably just cooling pipes. And then on the right side, we have a pair of falcons together. This is definitely a Xeon influence, as we should be taking a look at some Zaku's with falcon guns somewhere down the line. So yeah, they definitely did a good job of a GM with a lot of Xeon design elements. These pylons on the side, these are definitely modern influence, where we will see a lot of non-visible light sensors on the side for different type of distant navigation and fire control system. That is pretty cool that they are in separate colors and hanging off the side like this. The chest, this is a lot simpler than the GQuuuuuX Gundam, and yeah, I think the blocky no vents design is fine for a Gelgoog. At least, the vents are hidden underneath the armor. I think this is a good alternative. The cockpit hatch is a lot lower than we used to on other UC mobile suits. Given how much slimmer the overall design is, this makes sense. Skirts, yeah, we don't do skirts in GQuuuuuX. We do still have a bit of collarbone armor, I would call it, on the side that can move in case it interfere with the leg. The thighs of GQuuuuuX are what a lot of people talked about. One is definitely how thick they are, but the other is how there is this line going across between the top half and the lower half. Some people think it is an eyesore, but given what people want, like the amount of detail and the structures that people ask for a HG kit, and how solid do they want this HG kit. This thing looks thin, but it has a lot of different plastic pieces locking into each other. So it is solid despite being thin. I think this line across here is just one of those prices that you have to pay to get to the level of details, the level of structural integrity, and the level of part separation that you would want in a 1-to-144 kit with a relatively friendly price. So I don't think I don't think this is a problem. This is just a result of what people wanted. As for the lower leg, I think this is where once again, Bandai trying to compress the size of the sprue so that it can fit in a standard or thinner size box for better logistics. They definitely can do a mold where all of these curved pieces are their own piece and we just assemble them together, but the sprue will be larger or higher or taller when stacking. So they decided to make the lower leg armor, at least the majority of it, a sandwich from left to right. Lucky we do have a one-piece shin, so it is not as noticeable, but you can still kind of see it. But yeah, otherwise, the details on the lower legs and calves are excellent. And looking at the back like this with all the orange fuel tanks, this definitely looks like what we have on our spacecrafts today. This is what I mean by another Waterloo is designing something that we could build in 10 or 20 years. Not quite with all the material technologies, but we have enough engineering know-how to build something this size, probably not a machine of war, but as a sort of hobby or technology demonstration piece, much like the glass unit for the World Expo Gundam. It feels a lot like real-world spacecraft. The design of the foot is super simple, which makes sense because you want them to be as strong as possible while being able to achieve different poses while being shipped to produce. The design and the shape clearly convey that. And we still have excellent sculpt on the bottom of the feet. To the back, I really like the cage design of the body of the backpack, conveying how it is a modern spacecraft type of design, and that continues to the thruster binders. Again, it would be a separate video where I talk about how great another Waterloo's understanding on universal century technology. While yes, this is kind of cheating in a sense, but it is sort of hindsight that I think a modern designer should have, that should apply to their redesign Mobile Suit Gundam designs. So I'm okay with it. Onto the arms, nothing special really, very Federation looking. Maybe a bit more curvy because they are produced by Xeon. I do want to point out how the elbow joint is super simple, much like the foot. This led to me to believe this Gelgoog just used fuel motors for power transmission instead of pulse transmission. So yeah, style-wise, Hinata Waterloo definitely succeeds into delivering a design from Federation produced by Xeon and created in a style that's understandable with modern day human technology. The translation into the Gunpla is also pretty successful. Despite a few color missing here and there, like very tiny ones, I have to give Gelgoog GQ an S for style because it translates to our inferior modern day technology onto a plastic model that is also pretty solid, despite all the hollowing out all around it. Next is action. Action isn't just the number of articulations, but also how useful those articulations are. For Sugai's Gelgoog GQ, the head is on a sort of unique hinge on top of the head, and then a regular ball joint for the neck. So it can look very high up, and the neck is not an eyesore to look at. It is not pretty, but it's not too bad either. As for the chest, pretty much like every modern Gundam kit, we have an ab crunch, but because the armor segments are pretty tight on the Gelgoog, you don't really get the side to side. You get those with your belly, which is kind of like the old HGUC GM, and then ball joint around the hip. Skirts, we talk about how this collarbone can lift to create more room for the thighs, although the thighs are really thick, so you pretty much just go about 80 degrees, which is not a lot for a modern kit. But as a modern kit, you do have a lot of sideways turn for the leg. Not quite, 180 between the feet, but again, very wide for a 1-year war-ish mobile suit. And yeah, you may be noticing the thrusters on the thigh can turn along with the fuel tank. It is a whole rocket unit by itself. And yes, it is a white pack inside, so I painted red, like a lot of the classic Universal Century color schemes. The thruster on the thigh needs to turn because it gave space for the calf to come in with the double joint knee. Interestingly, well, this is the knee joint, no doubt about it, but it is not what you normally understand. But that gives the knee a structure strength that these hollows looking design legs structure is not the real structure of the leg. The real structure of the leg is a lot of pieces interlocking with each other. So it's stronger than you might think or it looks. And then, yeah, the thigh is mostly a fuel tank, which is what most 1-year war mobile suits really was anyways, just that you can see it now. And then once again, protective cage for the rocket engine at the calf. And then we talk about the foot. It is super simple in design, and it does have a bit of a limiter so that it couldn't bend outside, which is, I guess, a nice touch, but also, it's a robot, not really human, while limited. But otherwise, 45 degrees inwards, that is pretty good. We got toes. These brick lines are real. And we can kick forward. The forward kick is quite wide, and yeah, this gives Gelgoog GQ a very flat knee to toe for kneeling. And then tilt the foot to the back. Again, pretty good looking. The backpack, we play around with it in style. The two thruster pylons, they are on a ball joint and then got a hinge that you can pack the thrusters in or spray them out. I spray them out because that's flattens the back a bit more, and you can see them from the front. I mean, tucking them at the back is fine too, I guess, but it is not as dynamic as me pushing them up in a V formation. Onto the arms, shoulder joint, pretty much standard modern shoulder blade forward, and then swivel for the shoulder that can rotate upwards, and then a bicep that can turn, and the hand on a ball joint. And yeah, at the elbow, you can see the shallow cut on the forearm. It can go up to 120 degrees. Again, that is generous for a 1-year war style mobile suit, so I am totally fine with that. And we are once again ready to Kung Fu fight. Now, I am a bit skeptical about the foot not being able to, tilt outwards. That would definitely hurt the balancing, keeping everything in a center line. But given how many things are actually weighted around the center, it should be possible. I just need to find a sweet spot. Here we go. Not very easy due to the limiter on the foot, but it is doable. Otherwise, a good kneeling pose, it's very easy to do. Just the crazy exotic Kung Fu fighting crane form is not another Waterloo's trying to design, okay? He's trying to design something realistic. Anyways, so yeah, for action, despite the complex design, the whole thing remains solid, mostly, and it have a lot of useful articulations and manages a lot of realistic poses. So I have to give it an S for action as well. Next is Gimmick. Gimmick are the onboard weapon, optional weapons, and other functionalities of the mobile suits. For Gelgoog GQuuuuuX, we had a look at the falcons on the head, not too special. And then the beam spray gun, which isn't too different, surprisingly, from the original Mobile Suit Gundam design. Still a stubby little beam pistol thing. Just that now it has a lot more bars and guards around it to protect it. A bit more realistic, rugged military design. While the Gelgoog GQ does not have a shield, the fan braces pretty much function as bucklers, as you still have a full forearm underneath. You can definitely plug different options here. So that is something that is common with the original Gelgoog and the original GM. And yeah, talking about Gelgoog, we have to talk about the beam javelin, or beam saber in this case. Pretty much a Federation design, and we got the Federation pink beam saber blade here. And while not shown in the show, Inada's original design is, this is Gelgoog. It should have beam emitter for both sides of the blade, or hilt. So yeah, your Gelgoog GQ can still do the whole Gelgoog Gel blade I don't know why I say beam javelin to begin with. Should be beam naginata. So yeah, the beam naginata still have twin blades on the model kit. Not shown in the show, but that's okay. And yeah, the weapons rack holding the beam saber on the side like this. This is definitely another, well, not the Code District type design, but more like the GM Command type or GM Sniper 2 design. So Minato Wataru is probably also a Ichibachi fan as well. And now we do have a second beam spray gun on the rack here. And this rack is actually designed to stack both beam spray gun if you're not holding it on GM's hand or Gelgoog's hand. So yeah, this is a very effective weapons rack. Slot in at the back skirt just like the original Gundam. Like these little details that they have on this model kit to the original Mobile Suit Gundam Heikchi kits, I lost my words. I love this kit. Even though it has a lot of choices that I do not agree with, I love this. And you might be wondering, this hand looks kind of weird. What is it doing? Well, Universal Century mobile suits have communication wires inside their fingers or behind their fingers to shoot out for direct contact communications. And Sugai misused this system to tether her mobile suits into the enemy's mobile suits, which confuses them greatly. Not just communication-wise, but it also changed the way her mobile suits move in relation to her enemies, and earning her the name the Witch, which is why we have a personal Haugery for Sugai. That is a, two different hooks. And yeah, just like other wires, you get an actual wire and then a little bit of anchor point at the end. So that is pretty cool. That is a pretty cool pose. Very much what we see with the kinetic pods, or actually more like the Goof B3 back in the day. It sort of started to hold this, wire thing, but yeah, really adds a different dimension to both the model kits and the way she fights. So yeah, having a dedicated hand for that is definitely a lot of additional points. We also got a standard hammer grip and a spray out hand for the left hand. Not for the right hand though, sadly, but that's enough for Heikchi in general. I like my mobile suits hold their weapons with their right hand for the most part, unless the pilot is left-handed specifically. We also have a different color midsection, presumably for other Gelgoog GQ. That's not Sugai's color. So yeah, gimmick-wise, everything Sugai pull off is represented on this kit. No wonder Bandai withhold the information of the kits until the episode was aired. I have a completely different theory when they mention Sugai have an ace in the hole, and that's why I painted the visor red for my own sake. But yeah, I glad what they choose for the show. I still wanted, this, but this is fine. I think this is definitely a valid trick up her sleeve for the way GQuuuuuuX is told. So yeah, gimmick once again, S. Last and definitely least for Sugai's Gelgoog GQ is absence. This kit definitely delivers more than what we see in the show, with the beam Naginata having the twin blades, with the frame braces being a separate part of the forearm, and then we still have the double stack beam spray gun weapon holding rack that is removable for other options. We don't even get to see the thrusters can move like this. I don't think so. And we certainly don't have the time to admire the really modern retro, because Universal Century is supposed to be far future. The modern retro space design. Yes, like I have mentioned in style, there are a few parts that is supposed to be yellow that remain to be white on the kit, and you get no sticker other than Sugai's personal insignia. That is totally fine. I'm not going to put those stickers on anyway, and you know, those are really tiny yellow bits that people probably wouldn't care. Like, I'm glad we still have this yellow block that is very Federation color coded looking. And yeah, the actual Xeon Gelgoog GQ is in their standard green color. Only Sugai has the balls, despite she's a woman, to paint her GM into the light gun cannon color, which is actually just standard Federation color, but anyway. So yeah, absence is the easiest. This kit deliver more than it ought to have, than most HG ought to have. Certainly more than certain other kits in the lineup, but let's save that until we look at that kit. So the verdict for the Gundam GQuuuuuuX Gelgoog GQ Sugai's unit is as for style, as for action, as for gimmick, and as for absence. Overall, even if you don't really get into Gundam GQuuuuuuX, or you are not a big fan of the style they made the mobile suits in Gundam GQuuuuuuX, like the style of the design, I think the Gelgoog GQ would be a fine addition to your regular Universal Century lineup. It can just be some civilian alternative version of the Gelgoog slash GM slash Jagan, if we get to there in the future. So yeah, I think this is a good gunpla to buy even if you are not into GQuuuuuuX itself. Thanks for watching, see you next time.